Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In this week's video, we're going to look at 5 sound design tips and tricks that you can do to your patches to give them more life. So let's get into it. Everything we're doing today is going to be on the Delia just because it is super easy to demonstrate. We can see everything, we can easily modulate, and it has a bunch of envelopes and all that good stuff, but you can use these techniques on pretty much any synth, whether that be hardware or software. So first up, let's go and load a default patch. So we just have the standard sawtooth. So the first thing we're going to look at is modulating the waveform. Now this might be referred to as pulse width modulation if you're using a square, but in this term, we're just modulating the shape of the waveform to give us more sort of tonality and just give it the patch a little bit more life. So if we come across and we move over to the square, and you can see on the screen and on the little screen here, we have the little waveform. We can hear as we move the waveform shape, goes to a really thin sort of pulse, all the way down to almost nothing. And then as we move that back and forth, we're getting sort of more variation. So we're not just getting that one shape playing the same every time. We're getting a little bit more movement, so it creates a little bit more interest in the sound, and also doesn't fatigue the listener if they just hear the same sort of, you might have a drum loop playing rather than drums that you programmed in yourself, and to have a loop playing and then the same synth sound without any movement, all these things can add up and just make the sounds in your song a little bit boring. I mean, each their own, but I like to kind of add a little bit more variation. So what we can do is, for this demonstration, we're going to use the LFO to modulate the shape. So if we come across to mod, go to LFO, and then we're going to increase this. First up, let's bring up the level. And then if I hold down, and you can hear it starting to move there. And then we can increase the rate just a little bit. Maybe back down the amount a little bit. And then pull down the level just a hair. Down on the rate a little bit. So now, I'm taking it out of mod. You can hear that movement going on there as opposed to no movement. Nice amount of movement. So something as simple as that is just attaching the LFO to the wave shape gives us that sort of more sound to play with. Number 2 is using the oscillators to create a chord shape. So for this one, we'll come across, load the default, same again. So you can play chords on your keyboard, but one thing you can do is then create the chord shape by using the oscillators and tuning them. So for this, we can just go simple triad. So you can see I've got the little tuner here, and if I just go to C, this one's going to be an E and then a G. So instead of having to play that, we can turn down oscillator 1, come up to oscillator 2. Instead of it playing C, we want it to play the G note. So we can tune. There we go. And then if we bring up the first oscillator, You can hear we've already got just the 2 notes playing now. Now if we come across to oscillator 3, bring that up. What we want to do is we're going to come across to wave, and then we're going to choose a waveform that's a little bit better. There we go. Exit. Make sure we turn down 1 and 2. Go to 3. Let's change the shape a little bit. I found that the oscillators for oscillator 3 are a little bit louder because it's just the waveforms there. And then this one we want to tune up to the G note. So we've got the G there. Let's change it around to a little bit more of a square to get some of the more harmonics in there. And then if we bring up the other 2, now we have our triad. So now we've just used the oscillators to tune them and to create that triad. So instead of having to play the 3 notes, we can just one finger banded it. Number 3 is using filters to create different tones and tonalities. So initialize again. This on the Delia we have the high pass. High pass, we have low pass, and then we can link them together to kind of get like a band pass filtered sort of thing. So what we can do is in here there, we're gonna switch over to the high pass for the resonance and that, and then we can link them together. So now when I move, can do is we'll go to patch, voices, we're going to edit, we're going to bring up to 3 and then detune. Bring up the drive a little bit. So you can hear the variations we get there because we do have we're able to link and we can have the high and low pass. Kind of get some more variations in there that we can use. So we got this, we can go to VCF, increase that amount. And then let's go to the VCA, which is effectively the volume of the synth. Just adjusting the envelope a little bit. We can also go to mod. We're going to get the LFO we'll go to filter there and then increase it. And then we can come across, lastly, add some effects, add some reverb, and we're going to add some shimmer. Do love a bit of shimmer, and then add the effect in here. Unlink them. Let's pull down the high pass a little bit. Link them back up. Add a little bit more of the high pass. And you can see there by just combining the two filters to kind of get us a bandpass, we kind of give some different flavor as opposed to just using the low pass, which I am a sucker for. But this is a way that we can employ both filters to kind of give us a little bit more flavor. Number 4, and this is one that I do in pretty much all the patches that I make, is layering the oscillators to give a little bit more weight. So I've got just the default. And one thing that I would do is, say for this one, we just have the oscillator 1 as like the main sort of sound that you would hear. Then oscillator 2, we can push that down to the triangle, so it's more kind of like a sine wave. You're not getting a lot of harmonics. If I pull down oscillator 1, we can hear oscillator 2 there, but we want it to provide that weight to the whole sound. So we'll go to coarse, go down 1 octave, and then we can bring up oscillator 1 again. And then one thing is, because that is going to take up a lot of room frequency wise with that low, so I just pull that. And then if I pull the filter down, go to like 3/4, come across to the VCF, I'm going to add, and then we take down the sustain, and we're going to make a kind of a plucky sound. So add some release on the VCA, the volume. So you can hear that weight in there. And then if I take away oscillator 2, bring it back in, just adds that sort of low end information, and it just adds a lot more to the patch. So it's something really simple you can do, is just take one of the oscillators, tune it down 1 octave, and then use either a triangle or a sine wave to kind of add more weight to your patch. On the flip side, one thing you can do is just layer it up with a sub on a different track, but when you're kind of jamming and you're kind of getting into the feel of everything, I usually just do this because then I can kind of see if the patch that I'm written is going to work within the song, and then down the road, if I need to take it out, I can just filter it out and then add a sub onto a new track. And the 5th and final one is taking a look at voicing options. Now, this is one thing when you're starting out that you might not sort of go too deep into, but definitely when you start designing patches and creating your own sounds, or maybe tweaking ones that you're following along on a tutorial and stuff like that, is just the different voicing options. So if we come across the patch, and then you can see here we have unison voices. So this is going to stack the amount of voices that we can use. So it's like if we were holding down 6 notes at once, that's going to give us our voices, or we can go to edit and we can increase this. So if I play 2, so it's like me having 2 Delias playing that C note, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And you can hear as it goes up, it doesn't really make the sound bigger, it just gets louder, and you kind of get that metallic-y sort of presence with it. So one thing we can do is we'll come across to the D tune. So we've got all 6 voices playing on that one note. So if we go edit on the D tune, and you can hear there, that's when we start to get into that super saw sort of territory. Just be aware when making these sounds that using that unison voice can really eat up a lot of room. As soon as you detune, you're going to take up a lot of frequency range. So when you start getting on, at least on the Delia, when you start getting above 6 for the detune, and definitely up to 12, that's when it's really getting really, really wide. So just something to keep in mind there. If we come across to the unison voices, we take them down again to 1. So, and then we have the different modes for the poly mode. So we have poly, so play those notes. Retrigger, mono retrigger, so just only allows for one note at a time. And then legato, you can use in conjunction with glide. And this is where it's really good once you have that legato, the glide turned on, we can take this down to a triangle. We can add in an effect. So we go to effect, edit, we'll go to reverb with a bunch of shimmer, bring up the amount. And you kind of get that theremin sort of sound. Again, we can pull down the filter, pull down this, change the envelope a little bit. To get some really cool effects, just adding a little bit of filter, a little bit of envelope, and obviously the reverb doing the heavy lifting there in the background. So it's just a quick one today, just covering 5 different sort of tips and tricks that you can use in your sound design at a very basic level to create some more interest with your synth patches. And hopefully at the end of the day, this has inspired you to create something. Until next time, see you later.